Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Yeah, we ran out of patience. Boil up with the cold hard hatred. I can feel the vibration. Feet in the streets, it's a new sensation. I wanna break faces on the pavement.
So welcome to the fourth installment of Introducing. Today we will be introducing Loud, who are the Brazilian super team, if you will, because they were the Brazilian champions, of course, again, and as many of you will know, they finished runners-up in Masters 1, only losing to Optic, and actually, as a team, Loud have only ever lost one game, and that was that Masters Reykjavik final against Optic. And so, of course, the expectation for Loud is that they are one of the favorites to go on and actually win the tournament, obviously finishing second last time. They have a very good chance of potentially getting to the final again and perhaps this time winning it. They are a very, very good team. Their style in general, I would say, is super cracked plus utility. What I mean by that essentially is they aren't a team that runs a ton of fakes or will do a ton of crazy different things that you've never really seen before. But they play very well as a team for the most part. Everyone on their team is individually very, very good at aiming, and they combine that with just good utility use in general as well, right? They aren't going to do crazy things that you've never seen before, but they'll do, pretty standard things, but do it at a very, very high level. When you watch Loud, you think, yes, I've just watched a game of good Valorant pretty much all of the time, because I mean, especially their aim is insane on pretty much all of their players, and yeah, they combine that with very good utility use as well. The last point I have here is group stage sad face. Now, this was because NIP lost to Crew. So the last place for this tournament is decided between the LATAM scene and the Brazilian scene. And it's a playoff between the two second place teams. And whoever wins that means that, whoever was first in the side that won it goes straight to the playoffs, and whoever loses goes to the group stages. So that means that Loud were basically relying on a different team, Ninjas in Pajamas, to win their playoffs so that they could skip the group stages. But Crew did defeat NIP, and so that means that Loud, even if Loud played Leviathan, right, and they could determine for themselves who would go into the playoff stage rather than the group stage, Loud would have beat Leviathan. I mean, most of us can probably agree on that. So it is a bit sad that this superpower team is being forced to play in the group stage, not even due to their own results, right? They had no control of whether that was the case or not, which is a bit sad because I'm very certain that they would have beat Leviathan if they had their own playoff for it. And I don't really know why they don't. But anyway, it is a bit sad for them that they will have to go through the group stage. But honestly, I think it's more sad for everyone else who's going into the group stage that all of a sudden Loud could be in their group. When it comes to the agents that they like to play, we have Sadak here, who's the IGL from Argentina, all the other players from Brazil, as you can see. And he likes to play mostly initiators alongside Sassy, who also plays a lot of initiators, particularly Fade. Sassy has picked up a lot of that and is using his Fade very, very well indeed. Aspas is kind of the main duelist for the team, who also will play a bit of Chamber. Pancada is their primary smoking player, who plays, pretty much all the smoke agents, as you can see, and then a bit of Sage on Icebox as well. And then Les is kind of a Sentinel player who will also play a bit of Viper. And BSKA, I'm not quite sure how you'd actually pronounce that name, is the coach. When you look at the stats, I mean, they're just absurd numbers. Loud absolutely destroy their region. They are probably the most dominant team in any region. They didn't drop an entire map the way into the qualifying. They are an absurdly good team, way better than the other Brazilian teams, and that kind of shows in some of these ridiculous numbers. I mean, the KD for every single player is above 1.2, which is pretty nuts indeed. So yeah, the stats, I'm not sure how much you can really take away from them because they're just way better than everyone they've played so far. And so now let's take a look at some rounds from Loud's gameplay, and we'll start here in the grand final against NIP for Brazil. And what this round is going to start off with is actually some aggression from the side of NIP. You see the Fade Haunt that they've got here. You see that they've put a smoke just in here as well. They've also sent out the Breach Stun. You might have seen the Breach just be there early. So they're kind of faking some early aggression. And the response from Loud is to send out this early Prowler, make sure that no one's there, regroup as a team, make sure that nothing's going on early. You can see they kind of, you know, group up, they make sure that nothing's coming, and they're going to send out the second Fade Prowler as well, just to again make sure that nothing is actually there, so that they can start to push up, disrespect this smoke, and then they're going to send the Skydog up towards long as well. But we're going to start to see some of their utility usage as they send in the dog there, they send in the Boombot towards Hooker, it gets shot, they know it gets shot from over here, so you start to see some of the utility combos they have, with the C's, with the nade, with the Viper Molly, all going in at the same time. Really, really nice, right? Actually, somehow this Brim manages to completely avoid it all. I don't really know how, but he does manage to get the first kill on by avoiding all of that stuff. But here we start to see again, right? Sassy has got a Fade Horn all the way up here that actually sees the two players in Hooker as well. Really, really, really good stuff. Look at that. I mean, just insane. And that allows them to push. As you can see, the Brim's looking the wrong way. They get the first kill. They get the second kill as well as they start to come in. Really, really nice. I've said this before, but anytime 3 people get an assist on a kill, that means something's gone right. They start to get the spike down. And then because all this pressure has been coming towards Hooker, right? Like the 2 players that have died on this B site, you know, all the pressure has been in here. And so what's happened is the Brim has actually walked, as you can see, Pancata, he's actually walked way deeper than I think anyone expects. And he's going to win his little aim duel against the Breach there. And then it's actually going to be a save from NIP. And so you start to see some of the things that Loud like to do. You know, we get winning of aim duels, but also that utility usage is very good as well. And they win this round. Now let's come to round 10 on the same map, because this is a really, really interesting round, and we're going to see a couple rounds of this where Loud basically do something that not a lot of teams do, right? So they start with an early Prowler there towards Shower, they push them back, they push some of them back away from that, and then they send in the Skydog as well and push them even further back. They start to come up with the Viper utility, and we get this amazing Fade Horn that sees actually both, I think, of this Neon and the Chamber as they're just running in there, so they get amazing information against Sassy using his util really well. Let's put out the Viper Molly. NIP are actually going to come and swing with the Breach done here, but he's able to get one and gets traded out, but that's absolutely fine. But now what they do, I think is really, really interesting, is they send a nade in towards towards the Chamber there. He TPs, as you just saw there. You just saw the Brim Molly come down on the floor as well, and they start to plant the spike. But what they do here, look, they got the smoke here, and they push deep. Right, they push really deep on this site, and initially Sadak, it looks like, is going to start retreating, but then they realize, no, let's keep them penned in, let's keep them deep, right? We take full control of this site, and so they Brim ult Heaven. Really, really cool idea. They're going to Brim ult this, and with the time ticking now on the spike, of course, this means that essentially all of NIP are going to be funneled through this way, right? And so you just get these really nasty crossfires set up and different angles set up from Loud, as all these players are going to be forced to come out this way because they don't have time to come back through Heaven. It's really, really, really nice from the side of Loud. It works so, so well, as you're about to see, because that Fade panics. They send a flash in here just to stop them, to make sure they don't come through before they're ready. And now it's just going to be an absolute shooting frenzy. As you see, this Aftershock doesn't quite catch Sadak, but they just absolutely destroy them as they come through that narrow choke point. Really, really nice overall. And, you know, they aren't afraid to do stuff like that, where they take much deeper control of site than a lot of other teams would. And finally, let's come to round 12 of, I know this is all the same half a bind, but I think it gives you a good flavor of some of the things that Loud do. So they start with some early Shower presence here. They send in the Sky Flash and the Prowler as well. And Sassy knows that something's up. He gets the Prowler, and it actually hits the Chamber this time as well. And then they send in the Skydog, and again, send it towards this Chamber. They really put a lot of util onto that Chamber, who then is forced to TP away. They start to come in. They get the Sky Ult out as well. And we start to get a barrage of utility from both sides. In goes the Boombot, as you see, and they start to go towards Lamps here. But then out comes the Brim ult from NIP, and so that idea of kind of, you know, going towards Lamps gets foiled. They have to come outside instead. But now I want you to watch again the speed of thought and the speed of, like, everyone doing this as a team, right? The 3 players are going to go pushing through these smokes, right? They can't get Lamps control, so they just say, okay, we're just going to push you even deeper here. They flash through the smoke, and you see instantly both players are right here. They win this first duel. Sadak wins that duel as well, and now the Fatal comes out actually from the side of NIP. But now Sassy is, after Sadak dies there, he's going to trade the first kill and manage to get the second kill as well. So he gets 2 kills right there. And then all of a sudden we're in a 4v1, right? And this is the kind of thing. They really aren't afraid to just take very deep control. And you see, like, the speed of, oh, the Brim ult comes, right, let's just all push deep smokes again. Let's just go super deep with it and kind of force them away, right? And so They get the first kill there, do NIP, but they aren't going to throw a 4v1, don't worry. They get the Viper's Pit down as well, just to make sure, and they are going to win this round. You start to see, again, some of the things Loud aren't afraid to push you very, very deep indeed, because they feel confident that they will win those fights. But now let's come to a couple bad rounds from Loud, and I think some of their problems can come from when they get just a bit too confident that they're going to win those fights. And let's take a look at this round here, where they've won the pistol, they've got the guns against a bunch of classics, but they're going to lose this round. So you see here that it starts off with this, right? Les dies here to just Benzit. I think just hitting 2 headshots, to be honest. I think that is just what happened there. But this really isn't that big of a problem. Les only had a ghost, so it's not the biggest deal in the world. This is much more of a problem what Sadak tries to do, because I mean, he's not trading this kill. He is just blind peeking now into 3 people, not using any utility, not knowing where anyone is, and he gives them a gun, right? He gives them that chance to secure that gun, and so now they just have a Spectre given over as well, and that is a big problem. And now that you're in a 5v3, you're in a situation where really you have to do something a bit more risky, right? You have to try and make a play to even it up, and so that is what Aspas does, right? He tries to just, okay, I'm just going to make a play, pushing in towards spawn. It doesn't quite work for him. They do actually manage to eventually get these kills and make it a 2v3, but now they're in a very difficult situation, right? Where they still kind of have to worry that someone else could be towards A and is going to shoot them from there, and then obviously you have to worry about both sides of this as well. Very difficult situation for these players to be in, and that is exactly what turns out, because they're looking different ways, trying to cover different angles. They lose those fights, and they lose this round that they never really should have lost. And the same was true here on the first round of Icebox, the first pistol round, where they are on the attacking side. NIP are going to try and get a bit aggressive here, as you can see. But, Loud are going to win the fight because they are Loud, right? So they spot out some of this early aggression. They start to get these kills, and, they actually use a really nice prowler here towards John as well. It locks onto him, and he just gets absolutely screwed. They end up in a 5v2, should be completely unwinnable. But what you're about to see is literally 5 1v1 fights where no one really even tries to trade, right? There's 2, and there's no trade really coming in at all, or really a decent attempt at one, and then it's going to continue the same way, right? A kill, no one swings off it, no one's there to trade. Another kill, Sadak maybe tries, that's the first real attempt at a trade coming out, and so they managed to lose a 5v2 pistol there, where both players on the other team survived, right? So 2 players just got 5 kills without anyone really doing too much damage to them at all. I mean, look at the health left on these NIP players as well. It was really quite bad overall, I would say, of just 5 people peeking in one by one. And again, another round that they really shouldn't have lost. And so this is sometimes the problem that Loud can have, is maybe they get a bit too confident that they're just going to win these fights all the time, when of course their opponents are going to be good enough to make sure that that isn't always the case. When we're talking about Loud's map pool, honestly, it isn't even worth really talking about, because they won every single map that they played in the qualification for this tournament. I mean, maybe you could try and take something away from, how many attacking and defensive rounds won. Maybe their split defense, which is actually normally their ban anyway, isn't great. But other than that, I mean, yeah, they've just dominated. There really isn't much to take away from this at all. Talking about the agents they like to play, though, there are some themes that we can talk about here. This Brim pick, I mean, Brim having a high percent here, I wouldn't look into this too much, because, that's just because they play quite a bit of Bind and Fracture, and so obviously they play Brim on that map, right? But when it comes to the other controllers, again, maybe a slight preference for Astra, or at least more than most teams, over Omen. Again, you see the Omen's pick rate there is pretty low compared to the average across all VCT teams. They like Viper, right? Playing Viper on other maps like Bind and Split, not just like Breeze and Icebox, so they seem to be in on Viper as well. Actually, surprisingly, Chamber, they don't play as much as the average. I mean, they still play plenty of Chamber. It's not like they're against Chamber or whatever, but they don't play him on maps like Bind or Split, and so that is why, his percentage isn't as high as it is for some other teams. Then we see quite a bit of Sage in here, right, playing her on Fracture as well as Icebox, so that's why they seem to like Sage a bit. When it comes to the Duelist, you can see, again, they've picked a bit of Neon and a bit of Jet, but not as much as the average, and again, they like Raze, right? Again, they like Raze. It seems like quite a few of these teams that we've analyzed here do like to pick Raze, so maybe there is something in that teams picking Raze tend to be doing a bit better. And then Breach, completely average, but they do like Fade, right? So they have gone towards Fade more than Sova. Sassy, you know, probably was maybe the best Sova player in the world. He's transitioned to a lot of Fade, and, you know, they're making it work because his Fade looks incredibly good as well, as we saw from some of those clips with those haunts. Yeah, he definitely seems to be able to play the Fade at a high level, and KO as well, right? Sadak is a very good KO. He likes to play that a lot as well, so, you know, they are kind of in on Fade and KO as two primary agents, and then you can see that that is taking a bit away from Sky and quite a lot away from Sova. And when it comes to their pistol and eco rounds, I mean, they're just dominating again. Of course, they're way better than their competition, so this is perhaps expected. I'll be interested to see what these numbers are, you know, in international high-level competition, because you can see they're winning an absurd amount of pistol rounds. They're winning more than 50% of rounds when they're on an eco or semi-eco. So when they have like either a very low buy or an extremely low buy, they're still winning over half of those rounds. So that kind of goes to show just how good they are compared to the rest of the competition in Brazil. And then against ecos and semi-ecos as well, they're winning a high percentage of those rounds as well. You might have seen, you know, this isn't as high perhaps as these other numbers. And we perhaps saw some of the reasons why. Sometimes they can just get a bit overconfident perhaps and lose a couple of those rounds. But it's still extremely high. And so that was introducing Loud, and I'm sure that whoever is in their group stage will absolutely be cursing NIP for not beating Crew, because you do not want to see Loud in your group if you are any of the other teams.